Hey everybody, it's Christian Joy, and I'm having a moment of inspiration. And um, what I'd like to do with this podcast is like play it by ear. Like, what am I feeling called to, intuitively led to share in the moment? And it's always like, as I've engaged with my content, my work, and my platform. It's feeling right. Like the more and more I do this, it feels really good to do this instead of planning things out. Like I've always been that person who was scared to like step into doing things as a content creator or someone who shares like works, like writings or like videos and stuff like that. Like like somewhere in my mind, I felt like I needed to plan it all out, and I'm very much not the planner. And now that I've like just gone in there and just did it, like did the thing, went knee deep and just took action on like my messages, my intuition on what do I want to share next. It's all like I'm getting an understanding of how I want to show up, which is really fucking cool. I'm going to share this little background on me if you don't know. I've never identified as an intuitive or psychic like ever in my life. In fact, my awakening happened in 2020. And even then, during my awakening, I would have never described myself as an intuitive person. So I, like, probably 2021, 2022, I had set the intention to become more intuitive and use my gut to make decisions and figuring out what gut feelings were. So I started off as a complete muggle, and now I'm a little Clairsensey now, so which is really fucking cool. So if you've never engaged with intuitive senses within yourself, just know that it's possible because it was possible for me. So I'm riffing off of, I got this moment of inspiration from Substack, and I'm riffing off of all of last week's content from my collab with Renee. And we did a whole bunch of intuitive psychic content for last week. And by the way, we're also holding a workshop on February 19th at 2 p.m. PST, 5 p.m. EST, on Tarot and Oracle if you want to learn how to engage in your psychic senses, your intuitive self, through these divination tools, which are cards. And that being said, when I was posting these episodes on Substack, I post also in notes. And if you're not familiar with the platform, you can post notes kind of like it reminds me of Twitter or Blue Sky. I've never used Twitter, but I use Blue Sky, and it kind of reminds me of kind of like a Blue Sky Twitter like vibe. You just put your like whatever thoughts you have out there, and as people just randomly like reply to whatever you put out there. So one of the days I was inspired to ask people like, hey, who has experienced any of the Clairsenses? Like, what are your top three? And I'm not gonna go into a deep dive on each of them. That's not my jam. I love sharing stories to paint a picture of what each Claire means. And if you're interested in getting into a deep dive of that, Renee has mentioned that and Christine have a Claire Senses episode on Synergy to Synastry podcast. So I definitely like information is their jam. Mine is storytelling. So I'm going to leave it to them, the experts, on their beautiful topic of choice on their podcast. So for me, and it was it's like was really cool who was popping off on the comments in notes. It's just like a lot of people had things to say in what they experience. And I thought that was really cool because it's not like an everyday conversation like, hey, what clairsenses do you have? So what I shared first, and I said that I've experienced most of them, and my strongest ones are claircognizance, clairsentience, and clairaudience. So claircognizance is means clear knowing, where you just know a thing. You just get this random drop of information. You're like, oh, okay. And I'll give examples of each through story. And then clairsentience is sentience is where you feel things, like a sensation, in your body, like the hairs, like Renee had explained in, the last podcast episodes, like the hairs standing up in the back of your neck, or like body tingles. And then clairaudience. So sometimes I'll wake up in the morning. Clairaudience is like clear hearing, right? So sometimes I'll wake up in the morning. Like there were a few times last month where I woke up with like random songs like in my head in the morning. And usually for songs for me, it's like there's a message in the lyrics, which is so much fun because I'll like look for the song on Spotify, or maybe it's just that set of lyrics, or the part that repeats over and over. What is that called? The chorus. Because I don't know how you guys handle me. Like I'm always at a loss for words. And on a daily, and this is like my normal existence. And so yeah, like repeating phrases, that'll be my message, however that resonates with me. Like what does this phrase mean to me is basically what you're doing. So although I do want to say that there was one moment where I was in a room, this was like a one-off thing experience in my life. And I was just in a room by myself. I don't even remember where I was, but I remember hearing a male voice like out of nowhere. And I was like, okay, there's nobody around me. So I never knew what that was about. But that is an example, just hearing things that aren't fear. And it's funny that I'm starting off with this Clairsense, because it makes you like, it makes you like, okay, is this real or am I crazy? But the way that I understand the psychic senses is that you have like your head, your crown, where your crown chakra lives, your connection to the divine, to the spiritual space. Also, your third eye is the connection to your intuition. They're like antenna. You just can't see it. It's like, okay, I'm aging myself right now, but you know how back in the day they had TV sets and they had the antenna, but that's how they receive um the information to create a picture on the screen, right? We're like the same thing, but we're like the cell phone version without the antenna. Like, how do cell phones receive information? They don't use antenna. So we tune in as with our spiritual systems, if you believe in the chakra set like system, we connect to a different radio frequency if used with intention. We can connect with other frequencies, I guess, is how, like different radio stations. So that's why some people can see things and some people can't, and that's why some people can hear things and all the other senses and some people can't. So that's the explanation that I've heard and makes the most sense to me. So that's the one I will share. I know there's like science-backed information on this, but if I ever find that again, because I listen to a lot of like like hybrid spirituality slash science podcasts, and they're like brilliant with that information. That's not my job. So next story. Um, So those are my three strongest ones that I engage with the most. The two that I haven't experienced is Clairgustance and Clairtangency. And Clairgustance is clear tasting, so you will taste something and you're not physically eating something. And someone in the comments, and I'm not going to share their exact stories. I'm going to leave access to this thread in the show notes so you guys can add your 2 cents on how you experience things. Because even if this is like the definitions of these Clairsenses, I'm very much like, what is your experience? Like, because sometimes definitions like leave us in limiting boxes, and it drives me crazy when I say that this is my experience, but somebody will say, and I have a particular person in mind, somebody will say, but this is this. And I was like, but this is what happened to me. So you can't tell me that this is this. This is what happened to me. This is my experience. And it's like, I'm gonna say this out loud. There's like a level of unintentional gaslighting when you don't like honor that other person's experience. So, and that happens to me all the time. It's very unintentional. It's not done on purpose. I'm not even mad at the person. It's just some people love living in the logical mind or in the definite, like they find safety in definition and not in the abstract. They're not abstract thinkers. So it's like, no shade. That's just how they are. It's okay. So so someone in the thread said that the Clairgustances helped them a lot in cooking, and I was just like, what? I need that superpower. It's only helped me with cooking, like to know what goes well with what, and I was like, that's pretty freaking dope. And I kind of want to like set the intention. I will actually. I'm setting the intent. I'm doing it real time, you guys. I'm setting the intention that to strengthen my um clairsense of clairgustance. And that's how you set an intention. You just say it out loud or inwardly. You don't have to say it out loud if it makes you feel weird. But I like saying it out loud because I'm a manifesting generator, and that's like a part of my blueprint is that when I say things out loud, I tend to manifest things into being, and that's generally true for everybody. So, they have like in the spiritual space, they say words are spells, so be careful what you say. So, and then the other one is clairtangency. So I had to Google this one. It's clear touching, and it's about so so when I Googled it, it was like you touch something and you retrieve information about the object you touched. And I was like, is that really what it is? Because and this is what I mean by putting yourself in a box when it comes to definitions, because I could see myself experiencing clairtangency, clear touch, except my experience is I will touch a tree and then I get a sense of their being, like the energy of the tree. And that's how I would define that myself, but I'm not an expert. So Google search says clairtangency is when you touch something and you get information from that object, which is really interesting. And if anybody has that skill or resonates with my version of it, please share. And then, so those are the two I haven't experienced. So the rest are, and let me just name them all off in a row so you guys like don't get confused with my ADHD brain path of thinking. So there's clairvoyance, clear seeing, which is clear seeing, clairaudience, which is clear hearing, clairsentience, which is clear feeling, claircognizance, which is clear knowing, Clairsalience, which is clear smelling, clairgustance, clear tasting, clairtangency, clear touching, clear empathy, clear emotion. So I'm going to start back from the top. Clairvoyance is the one that you see most on in movies, the clear seeing. And it's when you see things that aren't necessarily there, or not everybody's seeing the same things you are, which is actually a real thing. Like, um, Renee shared her stories in the last podcast episodes. There was one time that I was like redecorating my best friend's room and I was painting the whole room black. That was her color of choice, which was like a fun experiment to see what black would look like in a room. And it came out actually really cool. Not the point of the story though. Um, and out of the corner of my eye, because I'm like facing her windows, out of like, and her doorway to her room is open. And out the corner of my eye, I could see someone standing there. And I was like, and then I would turn and there was like nobody there. And I was like, what the heck? And I thought it was her daughter. And then and I was like, okay, whatever. And then I keep painting. And then I see something in the corner of my eye again, and everybody's had this experience, right? And I look over and there's nobody there. And mind you, my best friend's really witchy, so I wouldn't be surprised if there was actually something standing there. Um, Otherwise, way I engage with clear seeing is like in the mind's eye. I don't differentiate this one with seeing through the imagination or the mind's eye. To me, in my experience, they're like the same thing. If you can daydream, you have clear seeing. So, and what do I mean by mind's eye? And I know some people might be giggling, like, what the heck is a mind's eye? Like, that's not real, whatever. But so mind's eye is, and I have a fun explanation about this because you know when you like are in deep meditation, if you've meditated before and all of a sudden you're deeply relaxed and you see different colors. And this is fun because lately my partner has um, opened up to sharing that experience in his when he gets acupuncture. He's like deeply relaxed and he sees colors, and I was like, "Ooh, cool! That's exciting." It's exciting to me because I was like, he doesn't tap into this world at all. And when I used to go to a float therapy spa, a local one, and it's a sensory deprivation tank. So you're in a pod and you just float in the water and it's supposed to remove all your like sensations and you're just like floating there, right? And when I was in there, it was really interesting because as I'll close my eyes because it's salt water that's what helps you float, and thousands of pounds of salt water. And I'll close my eyes for the majority of the time because I don't want salt water in my eye. And I'm like super relaxed. I'm in my zone, and I would see like colors of purples and greens and blues. And most people have experienced that if they allow themselves to be relaxed and relaxed and conscious at the same time, not like falling asleep. And one day I decided to play with it, and I'm like, ooh, I see colors. And then I decided to open my eyes and they disappeared. And I was like, huh? What the heck? And I closed my eyes again and the colors were back. So that's how I describe the mind's eye. And that's a lot of where I operate from in my clear seeing senses. Like when I'm in quantum hypnosis states in a theta brainwave state as a recipient of quantum hypnosis, that's how I engage with that modality through that seeing, that clear seeing. And except they'll turn into clips and images of things like daydreams. And other people will see like vividly in like movie type things, or you could be like Renee and it'll be like whole like images or beings that she connects with, which is really cool. Like maybe one day I'll get there, but I'm at that point where I'm like, I'm not ready for that. When I'm not ready to see anything, which is cool about how she mentioned about psychic contracts. Like, you get to have boundaries with your psychic senses. You don't have to see anything if you don't want to. So, that being said, we already talked about clairaudience, and then there's clairsentience, where it's the feeling sensation, like I said earlier. And this is also the word used for gut feelings. And now that I've like gotten in touch with my gut feelings more, it's it's become apparent like with certain things that really truly light up my gut, and that's the direction I'm meant to go. Like if I could give it a picture in my mind, it feels like a giant glowing orb in my stomach. Like, it's so present. And it's really fun when I go to crystal stores, because certain crystals, when I stand in front of them, my abdomen, like my gut, gets really activated. I can feel a lot of energy there. And what does that even mean? A lot of energy there. Like, Christian, what does that? I don't like understand. Like, if you've never felt a gut feeling, like, that explanation doesn't even cut it, because I remember when I was like first like learning to engage with my gut instincts, I didn't know what a gut yes and a gut no meant, or what that would supposed to feel like. It just like, I don't even know how to explain it in words. It's not a pressure. It just feels like, when your hands get hot, but it's not heat. So it's just a sensation that you feel there. And if somebody has a better explanation, just let me know. Um, but I know that when it's a gut no, it's definitely like a retraction feeling, like you're like, ugh, like a, that's like the only word I have for it, retraction. So now we have, let's see, clear knowing, claircognizance, clear knowing. And this is when I think everybody in the world has experienced this to some level or another, just knowing things. And I had a fun one recently with my partner, and he knew, like, one day before his sister announced it, he woke up one morning and he just like woke up, sat up, and was like, baby. And that makes me laugh so hard, because this guy does not believe in any of this stuff. And one day he just had this intuitive inkling that his sister's pregnant. Before she even announced it, it was freaking hilarious. It's so much fun when you notice things about people with all the knowledge you know about this certain world or perspective, and how other people who don't engage in this world or perspective, and like, you see it, but that they are experiencing it, but because they don't have the framework to fall on, it's just like, I don't know, I get entertained by it. So people might get annoyed and be like, see, you just did the thing. And then they'll just look at you like you're crazy. Um, but it's the next one. Clairsalience is clear smelling, and this one's really interesting. I had this experience. I was hanging out with my best friend and driving in her car, and we smelled green onion out of nowhere. We were nowhere near a restaurant. We were just like looking around, and we were both smelling green onion, and that was really weird. And this is how I know that not in particular me, but I'll explain this further in a second. But she definitely has the clairsense of clairsalience of smelling, because I remember one time we were like hanging out and playing cards and stuff, and she started smelling vanilla, and I asked her, I was like, hey, why don't we just look up what vanilla means? And for her, it meant purity, love, and comfort when we looked it up, and it was very on brand with what she was going through at the time. And so sometimes spirit or your guides will speak to you through your senses, and they have messages. So that's like one like example. Like in recently in my Reiki sessions, um, I don't necessarily see things, but I like smell things, but I'll see things, and I get a lot of animal signs for people who receive Reiki for me, and a lot of them have been birds for some reason, but several people have gotten peacocks. Another person got a flamingo and stuff, and I just like Google, because I'm not a library in my brain. Google is my library, and you just take what resonates. It's just like the easiest thing to do. And I just look up the spiritual meaning of the animal and I send it to them with their post Reiki session notes that I send them through email or text. And usually they reply back with like, yeah, that all resonates, like the meaning of that bird, or I've been seeing that bird lately, or animal. So you'll be surprised how there's a spiritual meaning or to everything, signs, or just like a deeper meaning to everything. And the last one is clear empathy, and that's clear emotion. And this is the people, for all y'all empaths out there, who feel the emotions of another person. And I didn't really understand this. Like, so between me and my sister, when we got into conversations about what how we empathetically experience the world, hers is like she'll be in front of people and she can feel their emotions, which is wild. Like I don't necessarily feel their emotions, but I get a sense of the state they're in. So that's different. She like it's like her in her body experience, she feels that emotion like it's hers. So people feel that, and for me, the difference in my empathy is that if somebody has like some kind of ailment, sometimes I can sense that ailment in myself. And I shared that in the last episode with Renee, is that I've experienced somebody's nausea through the wall. And it's really interesting that I had that experience, because my big takeaway and learning from that I could feel someone else's nausea is that how much would we as a collective whole, each individual, if we didn't have so much external stimuli and we're engaged in devices all day long, if we were just immersed in total sensory deprivation like a float tank, like how much of our psychic senses would we experience? But because we do have all these external stimuli, we don't. So that was the really cool takeaway from that Vipassana retreat I went to, that maybe I am really more psychically inclined or intuitively inclined than I give myself credit for. I just haven't been in the right environment that would nurture those different senses or skills or the way I experience the world, which is so fucking cool. All right, you guys, that was my quick little rundown with like mini stories of how psychic senses show up. I will link Renee and Christine's podcast episode for the Clairsenses in the show notes here. I will also link the threads so you guys can share your stories if you want to, like chat with me on Substack and notes, or even in the chat. Like, please. I love stories. Like today was a potato day for this ADHD girly. I've been like surrendering to how my experience wants to be. And the last few days I've been going ham, like putting out content for you guys on the pod and Substack. And then today, like because I'm like a little ahead of the game, I've been using, like, it felt like a rest day. It was like overcast here in LA County, and I was just like, this is a potato day. And I read like a really cool article on Substack that was just like, maybe maybe discipline is not what you're supposed to do. Maybe it's chaotic discipline. And I was like, yes, yes. Because, some people we're taught to every day needs to look the same. I could never make myself do that. I like tried so hard and it just like makes me want to jump out of my skin. So this felt good to me today. I worked so hard, did a lot of work last few days, and now it's a potato day and I'm embracing my potato day. And it's brilliant. And I got a moment of inspiration to make more content from this beautiful, like, state of receiving. So if you guys identify with ADHD with like me, and that's your experience, and like having ups these days and downs these days, maybe entertain the thought of just going with how your energy wants to flow and just see what happens. You never know. If you have the space for it. Anyways, you guys, I'll see you on the next one. Bye bye.